Hey everyone, I am back today with a pretty intense story from my life, and this was about the time that I experienced reputation assassination as an 8-year-old child from another child. So, when I was around the time I turned 8, my family moved from one town to another, and this was a really small town. It was really religious. I grew up religious and homeschooled. And this specific religion we were in, had a chokehold on this small town. So when I say small town, I think there are 30,000 people there now, but there were around probably 15 to 18,000 when I was a child. So we moved to this town. There's a homeschool group there, and I was really enjoying it because when I was really little, we lived in a very rural area and we were homeschooled, so we were very isolated. And then we lived in this city for a little bit, and we were some of the only homeschooled kids in our neighborhood. So I had friends, but I even, at that age of 7, 8 years old, I really felt the difference between myself and the other kids who went to school. So moving to this town where we were in this community where everybody was like us was kind of mind-blowing in a sense. So I was a really confident kid at this point. I was really loving life. We joined this group and I was very popular. I was probably the most popular in that group than I had ever been or have ever been since, for the dumbest of reasons. So I had Heelys and I loved my Heelys, and so I would just zip around on them. And in that town, a lot of people had never seen them before, or nobody really had them. And so anyways, I think that was a large part of my popularity. Plus my family was new, and a lot of the families that lived in this town had lived there for 10 years, 15 years, whatever. So it wasn't common at this point in time, at least, for a new family to kind of just show up in the town. Now, there was a girl who was 2 years older than me, so she was not in my class or anything like that. And I had met her, but we weren't really friends. We didn't really hang out because we weren't in the same class. We weren't in the same age group. She had sort of ingratiated herself with one of my older sisters. I had an older sister 2 years older than me, who was this girl's age, and then I had a sister who was 4 years older than me, who is the one that this girl ingratiated herself with and was trying to be friends with my oldest sister. So I didn't really clock this girl. I was not paying attention. She was, like I said, the age of one of my older sisters, and I kind of stayed with kids my own age. So another thing, I had a cell phone. And there were only a couple other kids there that had a cell phone, because this was this would have been the mid to late 2000s. So it was not necessarily super mainstream yet for kids to have cell phones. Now, the reason that I had one was because my father was extremely controlling. So we were not given cell phones as a fun thing to be cool. We had cell phones because that was a way for my father to be able to immediately be able to access any of his kids and see what they're doing at any point in time. So one day I'm hanging out with this little subgroup of friends that I had started to make. There were, I think, 2 or 3 other girls in this group. And we were hanging out after the class is done in this room. And we're talking about our little flip phone, cell phones. At least one of the other girls in the group had a cell phone. And I just said, oh, I love my cell phone, blah, 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 blah. And, I was kind of bragging a little bit. But like I said, I think the at least one other girl, if not all of the girls in that little group, had cell phones. So it was kind of bragging to, oh, I love my Lamborghini. Oh, I love my Ferrari. It's not like bragging about a Lamborghini in front of someone who's driving a Honda. It was kind of lateral bragging. So in this building, they separated the classes with room dividers, not with actual walls. So if you stood close enough, you could kind of hear what was going on in the room. So this girl, she apparently was listening to our conversation, which is weird and creepy in and of itself, because it's like, why are you, as an older kid, spying on a group of younger kids by yourself, sneaking around like ear against the wall? Weirdo, creepy behavior. So she goes and tells my sister, the one that's 4 years older than me, this story about, I told her, I went up to her and was like, I have a phone and you don't, and like some weird sort of thing, as if I was bullying this girl. Remember, I knew who this girl was, but we did not interact because we were not in the same class. So I come out of the building and my sister, I go into the van. My sister comes out with one of her other friends and she pulls me out of the van, like digs her claws, like her fingers, into my arm, pulls me through, like throws me out of this minivan, and she's like yelling at me, and she's saying, why did you say this to this girl, and why are you like being mean to this girl, blah 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 blah. And I'm very upset, obviously, and I'm trying to explain to her what happened. And her other friend was trying to stop my sister from going nuclear on me. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, I have an ally, like someone on my side. But then this girl, it turned out she didn't believe me either. She just thought that my sister was being too harsh or too intense. So I'm telling her, no, I didn't say this. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And they just do not believe me at all. So later, we're at, I don't remember if it's the same day or a different day, we're at this park, and there's a bunch of people from this homeschool group there, dozens of people, if not like 100 people. It was a lot of people. And so this rumor had gotten around that I had antagonized this girl and all this stuff. And there was enough truth in the rumor because she took things that I said to other people, but that were not negative. And then she spun it as if I was mocking her or bothering her, but I never spoke directly to her. The only reason she even got those snippets was because she was eavesdropping and spying on us. So then I'm in this park, and my little group of girls comes up, and I don't even know at what point the rumor got like twisted at this point. I don't know what they had even heard. But they basically come to me and they're like, well, we can't be friends with you anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you talking about? Like, you were literally there when we had this conversation, But essentially I got friend group dumped by these girls in public in front of all of these people. And that was obviously very humiliating. And I was just, like I said, I was around 8 years old. I was a really little kid. So I lived in that town until I was 12, and we moved to a different town. And the rest of my time there was miserable. Not really due to anybody else there, but I had a lot of mental health problems, and some of it was due to just being in an abusive household. A lot of it was due to being in this religion and all the religious abuse. And I had, like, basically, I've never been diagnosed with this, but basically almost like an obsessive compulsive disorder when I was a middle school age child from that religion. However, I will say that the isolation because of that reputation, assassination, definitely didn't help. It definitely didn't help my mental health status, and I really retreated and withdrew into myself. And years later, when I was around 19 years old, I was at dinner with my sister and her husband, and this is not the one that pulled me out of the van. This is one of my other sisters. And she brought this up. She said, "Oh, do you remember, such and such person from hell, blah, blah, blah." Here's another thing, too, I forgot to mention. After the Reputation assassination happened, we still went to the same church as this girl, so we would see her multiple times a week. And she would, stare me down in the church. And I felt super uncomfortable and very on edge around this girl, and I would say things to my family, like, this girl is staring at me, this girl is trying to intimidate me, whatever. I didn't use those words, but however a child would articulate this. And my family would make fun of me, literally make fun of me, laugh at me, call me paranoid, all of this stuff. And this girl, from time to time, she would do things. She didn't do many things after this, but she would do certain things. I remember I had a little sister. I have a little sister. My little sister was, she's 7.5 years younger than me. So around the time I was maybe 8.5, and my little sister was 1, so still a toddler. And, not really talking much. I was outside of the church after it was finished, and she picked up my little sister, and she walked over to me and was like, "Oh, look at your sister," to my younger sister. "Oh, look at your sister. Isn't she so weird and just a weirdo?" So she would say certain things, and I know it sounds so comical, that this kind of thing. It's it sounds so ridiculous as adults, but the point is, she would say these little things when no one else was around to see it. And then when I would talk about it, no one would believe me, and I would look crazy. So when I was an adult at this dinner with my other sister and her husband, she brought it up. She's like, "Oh, remember how paranoid you were," whatever. And I just busted out crying in this restaurant, and they just kind of looked at each other like, "What?" And she was like, "Wait, did that actually happen?" And I said, "Yeah, these things actually happened." And so she was kind of shocked. And I just looked crazy. I basically they believed me now, but then I looked crazy because I was crying about something that happened over 10 years before. And then another time I had a conversation with my sister, the one who pulled me out of the van, and she believed me at this point, but she said, "Well, this girl, she had a rough childhood," because I knew certain things that she told me. And I walked away from that encounter feeling like, what the absolute fuck? What the absolute fuck, My childhood was fucked up too, and this girl made my childhood more fucked. So the fact that it just felt so dismissive that my sister was basically brushing off what I was saying with, "Well, people have trauma." So all of this is to say, people that do reputation assassination, there are certain things that they do. So if you look at my story, there's some secretive behavior, sneaking around, gathering information, right? And then they use enough of the truth to make the story plausible, but they twist it. And they involve your family members or friends or people close to you, and if they can use a family member or a friend to hurt you, that's the best thing that they would love to do, because what's more hurtful than turning a loved one against someone so that that loved one doesn't believe them anymore and is attacking them, So they use other people, and they do things secretively, And it's all set up in such a way that if you speak up against it, you look like you are crazy and you are unstable. And, I developed more and more of a reputation in my family, which I already kind of had, as being this erratic, emotional, just insane person. And people just would not believe me. And I think this ties into scapegoating, because I already was a scapegoat in my family to a certain degree, so they were already primed not to believe me. You know what I'm saying? So then if something like this happens, they've already made up their mind that they don't take me seriously to a certain extent, and so they're not going to believe me. So what are the after effects of a reputation assassination? Almost 2 decades have passed, not quite, but almost. And I will say trust in other people is really low. You expect betrayal. You expect that, like, you start to look at your family members and friends as fucking stupid, because if all it took was one accusation for them to mistreat you and turn against you, it kind of makes you look at them as dumb, gullible people that can't be trusted. They didn't trust you, and that actually makes them untrustworthy. It's really funny. It's a crazy paradox, right? So you start to feel really isolated because you feel like you can't rely on people and you can't count on them. And you also feel like your word is not enough. People will not believe you just based on your testimony. So it really messes with your sense of safety in the world. It really messes with your sense of trust in those close to you. And like I said, I really withdrew as a child after this. And I think that's on purpose. Like, I think that the person doing the reputation assassination, that is part of their goal, is to get you out of the way. So obviously I was a child. If I was an adult and something like this happened, I don't know what I would do. I don't know if I would deploy offensive strategies, defensive strategies, spread a rumor about them back. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. But this is a very intense thing to experience. And I think that a lot of scapegoats have felt this at some point in their lives. And I almost wonder if the person performing the reputation assassination on some level can sniff out the fact that you are a scapegoat, and that if they try to pull this shit on you, other people won't believe you and won't defend you and stand up for you. I almost wonder if there is kind of a special, I don't even know, instinct that they're going off of. Because if someone has people in their life that are going to believe them and double check and say, hey, this person said this, that you did this thing to them, is that true? And give you the benefit of the doubt. If they know that you have people in your life that are going to give you the benefit of the doubt, I feel like they're less likely to try to pull that with you, right? So anyways, this is my story of reputation assassination. Please, if you have a story like this, feel free to share it in the comments. This is a safe space for scapegoats and for anyone who's ever experienced this.